10 common questions that seller asks you when you get on the phone with them. So I ended up making a mistake and my camera died while I was recording the video, and of course there's no footage whatsoever for this video, so I'm just gonna draw some pretty pictures, and yeah, and then you guys got my beautiful voice in the background telling you guys exactly the answer to today's video. So enjoy my drawings. Hey, what is going on, everyone? Devin Knupp here with another video providing massive value and awesome content like always. And so in this video, I'm going to cover 10 questions that are commonly asked by sellers. And so if you're new to the channel, join the fam, join the game by hitting the subscribe button down below. I'm just a 19-year-old that's been able to create a six-figure business through flipping houses. And I made over 100 videos talking step-by-step exactly how to do what I do. So if you want to get more content like this, join the fam. And so in today's video, not only are these questions just for local wholesaling when you get on the phone, it also applies to virtual as well. And so I'm going to answer all these questions for you that you're commonly going to get, because I personally get these questions as well. And so on top of that, whenever you get asked a question by a seller, this is also known as basically them telling you that they're not motivated. So if they're asking a ton of questions, chances are they're not motivated, but there's a slight chance that they are motivated if they're not asking all these questions. But you got to kind of learn for yourself. So I'm going to read off my computer all these different questions, and I'm going to answer them for you guys exactly how I would do it over the phone. On top of that, I'm going to do a little bit of like an analysis as to why we give these answers, or you'll just see inside of this video. So the first question is, are you an investor? And so my answer to this, I quickly answer, yes, I'm an investor. Is that going to prevent me from purchasing this property? And just simple like that, and then move on. And after they give you an answer, if they say yes, that is going to prevent you, I would just be like, I would ask why. And there's probably a deeper reason, like, oh, you're going to buy my property super low, super cheap, and it's not going to work out for me. I'm going to give away my house basically. But the reason why we want to be straight to the point is you are an investor at the end of the day, and you pretend you got cash in your pocket purchasing property as we're giving them a cash offer and everything, or we're picking it up for cash. And that's what the agreement is set forth with. And so that one's pretty simple. Just make sure you're to the point with a lot of these questions. There's a few of them where you got to go a little bit in depth, but there are a lot of them going to be straightforward. So now the second question that I commonly get asked is, what are you going to do with my house? And so what I like to say to this question is, hey, Mr. Seller, so it really depends on the circumstance. Some of these properties, and once we really evaluate the numbers and everything, some of them we pick them up ourselves, turn them into rental properties, or others we end up getting them fixed up and everything and flipping them. And so it really just depends on the deal. And once I run a little bit more in depth after we figure out what number works for the two of us, then from there, that's when I kind of decide what I want to do with it. But we flip a lot of them, so I can't give you a direct answer. And so that way, it kind of covers all the basis of everything. And honestly, that's just honest truth of what's going to happen with the property. We pass it over to our partner, a buyer, and from there, they kind of decide what they want to do with it. I really don't care at the end of the day. It's usually the properties with smaller margins. They end up being rented out. And then on top of that, if they have bigger margins, then usually they turn into a fix and flip project. But every once in a while, some of the bigger margins, they just want to keep as a rental, as they have a lot of equity in the property. So now the third question is, how can you afford the property? I've gotten asked that personally just because I'm 19 or whatever. I usually tell them, hey, yeah, I'm 19 years old, because they ask how old I am. And they're like, dang, how do you afford the property? I just tell them, hey, I've had a lot of success. I have a lot of connections, and I've just set myself up to be able to flip properties whenever I find a good deal. And on top of that, so they know that, hey, this kid knows what he's doing, and I can trust this kid. I honestly rarely get asked this question, but it is, I would say, a common question, to say the least. So if you're one of those people that you're afraid of getting into the business because you just feel like sellers are going to be like, oh, this kid doesn't know what he's doing, he doesn't have any money, how can you afford this property and everything, I just tell them that you have a lot of connections, because honestly, there are things called hard money loans, which anybody can get as long as there's a good deal on the property, and people will give you cash for a property, and then you can flip it or whatever it may be if you want to go that route. or you can just hand it off to someone else that already has the cash. So just very general cape over the subject. I have connections that have a lot of money. And from there, that should cover your ground. That one's pretty simple, but like I said, it's not that common a question, especially if you're in your 30s, late 20s. But some of the younger people may get asked this question and just understand, unless you're wearing like raggy clothes that's all dirty and stuff, and you look like you just got done with construction job or something like that, and you have dirt all over you and stuff, then yeah, at that point, then you may get asked a question. But just be pretty straightforward with them. And so now this question, it's kind of a statement slash question. Is they're always like, make me an offer, and or what do you want to buy the property for? And this one I come back with, well, Mr. Seller, in order for this to be a win-win situation, I want to know your rock bottom price to see if we're a good fit. And then from there, that's pretty straightforward. There's a couple of different ways to approach it, but that's kind of the main consensus of it. Is just tell them, hey, like, I need to know what you want out of it to see if we're a win-win situation. So that way I can figure out if we're a good fit together, and then if not, we'll move on. I rarely send offers, especially if they're asking me this question. I usually just keep asking what they want out of the property and just get the number out of them. I just milk it until I get it to the price that I'm looking for or whatever it may be. And then from there, we just move forward, obviously. But yeah, if they're not giving me a number, then I kind of realize that they're not motivated, or basically they're not motivated. But sometimes I send them I give them a number just in case, like I really can't tell if they're motivated or not. And then from there, you really start to feel the motivation. And I usually don't just give them a flat out number like, here, $100,000 for this property. What I usually do is just I start really low. And then from there, I work my way up. And so what I would do is just like, okay, well, I'm not saying we can do this, but what if we did like $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 for the property? What about 80, 90? I kind of just read their body language and how they're responding to the numbers that I'm putting out there. And then once I feel like their vibe kind of shifted just a little bit, then I'm like, oh, okay, Mr. Seller, the $80,000, would that work? If I gave you $80,000 cash and we close quickly, does that work out for you? And from there, then I can kind of tell. But I usually, like, this is if they're really not giving me a number and I'm not really figuring out if they are kind of stuck at a price or they're not motivated or whatever it may be. So it really just depends, but you kind of learn this with experience. Worst case scenario, you can do what I did, where you just list out the numbers until you see how they react. I don't like sending out a flat out offer unless I have to. Especially if you're virtual wholesaling, there's more of a chance that you will have to send them a straight up number. But at that point, you just lowball it. Or another approach of doing this is just like, hey, Mr. Seller, so we both know the game, really, how negotiation works. Someone says a lowball number, someone says the highball number, and then you bounce back and forth until you reach the middle. I really don't want to do that right now. I don't have time for that. And I don't want to waste each other's time. Just tell me what your rock bottom price is, and we can see if I can tell you whether or not we are a good fit together. And so that way, if the number kind of seems appropriate, then yeah, I try to negotiate a little bit more, whatever, sign it up. And then if not, then I just say, hey, thank you for your time. Pretty straightforward. And so can we stay here, and how much time do we have? And so that's the fifth question. So this one is kind of, this one really depends. I never can really give a solid answer, just because it depends on the buyer. First of all, it's dependent on the closing date. So I would say minimum, let's say you do like a 30-day closing date. Then I would just be like, well, you get until the closing date, and then when the closing date comes, you can move out. And then if they want to stay till after that, I would just say, hey, I need to talk to my connections and everything and see when we can get you moved out. Well, if you can stay here and if whatnot. If not, I can find you another place to stay if you have to sell this property. Usually that's for like people that are about to lose their property for tax reasons, or they're about to foreclose on it. But at the end of the day, it really just depends on the end buyer and what they have in mind. And also, you want to make sure that you're protecting them as well. So you're going to make sure to inform them that they are going to need to sign a contract and everything in agreement of the rental rates and all that type of stuff, and saying that basically just like a tenant fill out form, whatever it may be. So that's pretty straightforward. And now another question is, are you a realtor? I usually just jump right back and I just say, hey, I am not a realtor. Are you looking for a realtor to sell your property for you? And if they say yes, then I just refer them to a realtor. Pretty simple. If not, then that doesn't matter. That point really is irrelevant. And you just keep moving on with how you talk to them on the phone, or if you're in person, you just keep moving forward. And so now number 7 is, how can you make me an offer if you don't see the property? So now this one applies if you're doing virtual wholesaling, and especially if like you're out of state, or you're doing it in your local area, but you don't want to go spend the time to go out in the appointment. And what I like to say is, well, first of all, what we can do is we can pull comps of the other properties with similar status of your current property. So we can look at other houses, same square footage, same amount of bedrooms and bathrooms, and kind of get a good rough estimate. And then we also take into account the year of the property, when it was built, and then the condition that it is in. And so with that, we are able to generate you a solid offer. And so are you okay with that, Mr. Seller? And so I usually ask them a question back. And what that ends up doing is, if they say yes, that makes sense, and then you just keep moving forward. But if they say no, then if they aren't comfortable with that, just be like, well, Mr. Seller, what this is really relying on is for you to be as honest as possible with us. And as long as you're honest, I trust your word. And from there, we can move forward. And if worst case scenario, if like we find out that something's wrong, then obviously this deal won't be able to work out. So just make sure that you're as honest as possible with me. And if they're still uncomfortable with that, they're just begging you to go look at this property before you buy it, then this one, usually they're not motivated to sell their property. And it's really up to you. You could send someone out. You can go out there, visit yourself, or you can hire someone off of Craigslist or something and go look at the property, take pictures for you and stuff. But at the end of the day, if they're asking this question, I just got a big hair. If they're asking this question, it's usually they're not motivated. So you just really got to learn how to say no and move forward and go work on the next deal, and just really understand that. So like I said, if they keep asking questions, if they're not okay with you doing what you're doing, then chances are you're not going to be able to get the property at a discount, and they're not motivated. The really key factor is that they are motivated to sell a property, because you can't convince someone to sell a property at a discount if they're not willing to sell it at a discount. It has to be okay with them, and then that's how we are able to get these properties at a discount. And so now the 8th question on the list is, it's kind of like a statement, joke, sometimes it's a question, is like, I'm not going to give my house away. And so what I usually reply back with this is, yes, Mr. Seller, I'm not asking you to give your house away to me. If I'm going to pick up this property, then I want to make sure that it's a win-win relationship, and that we are both gaining out of this experience, and from us working something out. So it's really up to you on what you're willing to sell your property for, and then from there, I can tell you whether or not we can do business together. I'm not asking you to give your property away, Mr. Seller. And so from there, as you can see, it really just kind of gives them a pretty truthful and honest answer. And then if you guys haven't noticed, the clear line of what you need to answer back with is, you just need to be honest with the seller. And the more honest that you are, the easier this is going to be. If you're not being honest with them, if you're not straight to the point, then what's going to happen is they're not really going to trust you, and trust is really the biggest portion of this. It's a relationship business. This is not like just straight up we're making as much money as possible. Yes, we are making a lot of money, but it's really about the relationship, and that's how we're making money on these deals. So you just got to understand that. And so now the 9th question is, I usually ask them on the phone, can I get the address of the property? And because we don't know what the address is, because we sent out a bunch of direct mail pieces, or we cold call a bunch of people, we don't have it in front of us. So what the seller sometimes says is like, why would I give you my address? You should know what it is. And what I come back with is just, well, Mr. Seller, to be completely honest with you, we send out a lot of these mail pieces to houses that we think would be willing to sell their property. We never know. So what we do is we send out a bunch of them. This is how we're able to find the deals, find the houses, find the people that are willing to sell their property. And sometimes they're okay with that answer, sometimes not. And they could be really pissed off that you're asking for their address. And sometimes they just, I'm not going to give you my address. You should know what it is. This seems really scammy, and they hang up the phone. Or other times they're just like, well, So let me get this straight. You call a bunch of people up and you find their addresses. So how do you know which of these properties are you willing to flip and everything? And so what I usually tell them is we flip a lot of properties. We always need more properties to pick up. We have a large budget that we are working with, and we basically just need more properties. And so if you're willing to sell your property at a price that we can work with together, then I am more than willing to buy your property. Plus, I've looked at a lot of, I really want a property in this specific area, which is where you are located. But there's a couple of different properties we sent pieces out to. So if you can give me your address, that would be awesome. And so just ask them for their address one more time, and then if not, whatever. Obviously, it's not a deal. So if like I said, if they keep asking questions, then obviously they're not motivated. So you really have to understand that. And so now the 10th question is, how did you get my info? This is a very common one that I get, and I am just straight to the point, which is, well, Mr. Seller, to be honest, I just got it from the county. The county gives us a list of properties, and from this list, we're able to, these are usually people that are willing to sell their property, and what we do is we try to get in touch with them and see if they're willing to sell their property. So are you willing to sell your property, Mr. Seller? And from there, you can just keep moving forward. Just let them know it's all public information. That's where we're getting all this information from. And from there, really, it's just some people think it's creepy, but at the end of the day, it's all public info, like people buying on their taxes, people about to lose their property, people that have equity in their property because you can see when the sale dates are and everything. It's all public info. It's on the county assessor, whether people like it or not, and that's how we're able to find their info and everything. So you just need to be honest with them. And when I first got asked this question when I got started, I was like, oh crap. We bought it from a website, or we went to the county and they gave us a list and we mailed it. And so that it's just really you got to be honest with them. You got it from the county. It's all public info, and that's the best answer. And if they're not okay with that, it's not our fault. It's not their fault. It's the county, and just how the system works. So that's why we're able to find these properties anyways. So that is the 10 questions that I get asked commonly whenever I'm on the phone with a seller or someone that calls me off of a piece that I send out, or if I'm cold calling or whatever it may be. Like I said, if you get asked these questions, likely they are not motivated to sell their property at a discount. But at the end of the day, you kind of have to learn through experience some of these answers, questions, kind of how I'm able to tell the vibe of the person. We're just able to figure out just based off of going out there and taking action, getting results, failing a lot, and then from that failure, bring out the success in it, the learning, the knowledge of the experience, and from there, we're able to get the success. So hopefully you guys have the answers to all the questions that you may get asked on the phone, and hopefully this video helped you out a lot. And so if this video helped you out, make sure you join the fam, join the game by hitting the subscribe button down below if you haven't already. Like I said, I uploaded over 100 videos on this channel, specifically on flipping real estate, wholesaling real estate, all that good stuff. So if you want more content like this, join the family, join the gang. On top of that, if you guys like today's video, smash that like button. Highly appreciated. And so, like always, I'm uploading to YouTube every day. So I will see you all tomorrow. Peace.